Jim Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan is a comedian, a Roman Catholic, and actually he was here about maybe a year ago at our Faith Fest here in the Archdiocese of Omaha. But his wife also works for the Jesuits. She works for America magazine, and he's a very popular comedian. He had a TV show, I think, last year. Well, anyways, he tells this really heartwarming story of him and his son walking in New York City on the South Street Seaport area of New York City, which is sort of an up-and-coming neighborhood. It has a lot of shops. It used to be a port area of the city, so it still has some, it's not the cleanest place in the world, but it's up-and-coming, and there are a lot of shops and wonderful places to eat. And so they were walking, Jim and his youngest son, Liam. Good Irish name there. And as they were walking along the city streets, it was kind of busy that afternoon. It was a beautiful afternoon, very different from what it is this morning. And just then, little Liam spotted one of those little small, like vending machine, those gumball, little tiny balls. You know, the ones that really bounce really high. You just go like this and they go all the way to the roof. You ever see those? They're wonderful. They're my favorite toy, by the way. And you just hit it to the ground and it flies all over the place. Well, little Liam spotted that little ball. And like any little kid, he went down to reach for it, and just then the parentedness of Jim Gaffigan says, "No, don't touch that dirty ball." Any parent would probably say, "Oh, God only knows where that's been." And so he told his son, "Don't touch that little ball, because if you do, you're going to die." And the kid just looked up with fright. Maybe some of us has felt that way touching surfaces lately with the whole COVID thing, Well, anyways, Liam, being a little kid, just trusted that he needed to get that ball. So he went down to the earth, to the sidewalk, picked up that ball, and just started bouncing it and catching it. And everything in Jim Gaffigan as a parent thought, "Oh, I got to get that away from him. I got to throw that away." And just then, little Liam looked up at his dad with this little ball in his hand and said, "Hey, Dad, can I keep it? Can I keep this? This disregarded toy on the ground, can I keep this?" Well, everything in Jim wanted to say no. But just then he thought, "Oh, his mother doesn't see any of this." So he said, "Oh, why not? Just don't tell your mother." How many parents have ever done that? "Yes, you can keep that ball." Well, just then Liam got so excited he started to dance in the middle of the street with this ball, just filled with excitement over this disregarded little ball that you can get for maybe a nickel in a bubblegum machine. Just started dancing. And then with that little ball in his hand, he looked up at his dad. He says, "Dad, this is the best day ever. The best day ever." When was the last time any of us have ever felt that? That indeed this is the best day ever. Indeed, it is often very difficult for adults to reconnect, to find that joy in our lives, right? When was the last time we really got excited about finding a little toy ball on the ground, or got excited about anything that caused us to dance in the middle of the street of our workplace? Indeed, it is the question of happiness not taxes, that is the real question in today's gospel. We have to go much deeper. It is really a question of happiness and security. That is the real question being posed today to Jesus. And we have to step back a bit. Some Pharisees, as well as some Jewish sympathizers to Herod, and Herod was corrupt, in the ancient world, these small groups, the Pharisees, some of them, they believed that to attain any sense of security or happiness in the ancient world meant that you had to cooperate with the Roman regime. Even though the government, the Roman regime, was certainly corrupt, oppressed, and exploited their own people. They embraced that idea, if you will, that if you just kept quiet and do what you're told, and to keep the peace at all costs, you could gain some sense of happiness in life, some sense of security. Just kind of go with the flow. And Jesus answered to the Pharisees and to these small band of supporters of Herod, Jesus gives an answer that really goes up against that idea of simply tolerating oppression, exploiting people. And he says, Jesus, we hear it. Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar. Give the government their due. But that expression also means this. But don't give them anything more. Do not give them your integrity. Don't let them take the truth away from you. So Jesus is going up against this sense of oppression, this exploitation of the people, this extorting of the people in this gospel. It really is a revolutionary moment, but it's a very subtle one. You sometimes we don't catch it. We think, he's saying, just tolerate the way things are. And Jesus isn't saying that. This gospel, it's very tempting to say that we can take God out of our lives somehow. That we can put our faith aside, and then we fall into this illusion that without God we can attain some kind of happiness and security. If we just kind of build up our own, what we think would be secure for us, or what would bring us happiness, or greed, or whatever it might be. Indeed, we must do our civic duty. It's a responsibility of all Catholics. We're coming up on a voting season, and we should vote. We should participate fully. But indeed, we don't bracket our God. We don't bracket our faith. God is part of the equation. God is part of our life. But yet God wants something more of us. Something more. He wants us to give our entire life, to give our very selves. That even in the darkness of our lives or in the hardships, that we know the very presence of God. That we reach out with our hearts filled with joy and excitement. The idea of serving and living in such a way that we lay down our lives for one another in this selfless sense of service. And that the attainment of happiness, even security, comes through that reaching out, that expanding of the heart. It is the reality that God, there's nothing that can come between you and God. That's what attains happiness. That nothing can become between you and God. And that's what Jesus is trying to tell us in today's gospel. That not even taxes can come between you and God. Not even this very toxic election season that we're in. I don't know about you, but the commercials and the ads, I've gotten to know them by heart. I know them as well as I do the Our Father now. They're on all the time, and they're not polite. And they really don't touch the issues, do they? But God's there too. And God forbid, but God is also there if my candidate doesn't get elected. God is there. God is there no matter how high they build that wall. God is going to be there. God is here now in the midst of this virus as it spikes. And as we wonder, what is our response from our government? Well, God is there, calling us together to live through this and to continue to reach out and expand our horizons, because God is there. And the good news is, and we often forget this, the next day and tomorrow, well, God is there too. And to worry about tomorrow is not your job. That's God's. Thus, to attain any level of happiness, according to today's gospel, or any sense of security, it's as simple as knowing that God is God, and this is the good news, we're not. And the realization of happiness and security comes to knowing that God is all. Just recently, our Holy Father beatified a 15-year-old, Carlos Acutis, an Italian. He died in 2006, born in 1990-something. His life was not all that extraordinary. It was very ordinary. He was a high school student, went to a Jesuit high school. Actually, when they reviewed his life, they took his school records, so be aware, students. And on that school record, it showed that he had numerous jugs. Justice under God, those are demerits. But yet, he still was on the path to sainthood. But it was his kindness. But more importantly, they said, even in the midst of him living with cancer, there was a sense of joy. What's bringing him to canonization is this overwhelming sense of joy. Saints are happy people. But they're also people who know that God is here. I invite you to look him up. There's a lot of YouTube channels on Carlos Acutis. It's a wonderful story of just the joy and the happiness of knowing a God who is here, who is with us. And so as we continue in our lives, we are aware that to attain this happiness, this sense of security, is to know that God is God and we are not. And God is the God of all.